When Chrysler launched the Pentastar 3.6 V6 in 2010, we had no idea it would become a modern legend. It's powered everything from rock-crawling Jeep Wranglers to boat-hauling Ram trucks and weekend warrior Dodge Challengers. But in our shop, what stood out wasn't just its performance, it was how mechanic-friendly it was. After more than a decade of working on these engines, we've gained real respect for Chrysler's design. Today, we're breaking down exactly why the Pentastar 3.6 has earned its place in garages across America. Let's start with the elephant in the room, reliability. We've all heard the horror stories about certain engines that shall remain nameless, but the Pentastar 3.6 tells a different story entirely. Walk into any shop, and you'll hear mechanics talking about these engines hitting 200,000 miles without breaking a sweat. I've got customers with Grand Cherokees pushing 250,000 miles on the original engine, says Mike, a master tech with 20 years under his belt. These things just keep going. And he's not alone in that experience. The secret sauce? Chrysler learned from their mistakes with earlier engines and over-engineered this one where it counts. The block itself is cast iron, old school, bulletproof cast iron that can handle heat cycles and stress that would crack aluminum alternatives. Sure, it's heavier, but when we're pulling these engines apart at high mileage, we're consistently amazed at how little wear we find on the cylinder walls. The pistons are forged aluminum with a robust skirt design that virtually eliminates the piston slap issues that plagued earlier Chrysler VS60s. But here's where it gets really impressive, the timing chain system. Instead of the problematic timing belts that could leave you stranded, Chrysler went with a dual-stage timing chain setup that's virtually maintenance-free. We've seen these chains go the entire life of the engine without needing replacement. The chain guides are made from a high-strength composite that doesn't wear like the plastic guides in some competitors' engines. The oil pump is driven directly by the crankshaft. No complicated intermediate chains or gears that can fail. It's simple, effective, and it means consistent oil pressure even at high mileage. When we see one of these engines come into the shop with 150,000 miles, we're not automatically assuming it needs major work. Here's something every wrench turner appreciates: an engine that doesn't fight you every step of the way. The Pentastar 3.6 is laid out like someone actually thought about the poor soul who'd have to work on it years down the line. Compare that to some engines where you need to remove half the car just to change the spark plugs, and you'll understand why we get excited about good design. The spark plugs are right there on top. 6 individual coil packs that unplug with a simple twist. No digging through intake manifolds or moving AC lines. We can do a complete tune-up in under an hour, which means lower labor costs for customers and less frustration for us. The oil filter is positioned where you can actually reach it without yoga poses, and the drain plug isn't hidden behind a maze of suspension components. I was expecting the usual nightmare, pulling fans, radiators, maybe even the engine. But nope, it's right there, accessible from the front. 4 hours instead of the 8 I budgeted for. The serpentine belt routing is straightforward. None of that puzzle solving we deal with on some engines where the belt has to thread through 17 different pulleys in exactly the right sequence. There's even enough clearance around the alternator and power steering pump to get sockets in there without skinning your knuckles. Diagnostic work is equally friendly. The PCM, Powertrain Control Module, communicates clearly with scan tools, and the sensor placement makes logical sense. When something goes wrong, the engine usually tells you exactly what and where, instead of throwing cryptic codes that require a crystal ball to interpret. What separates a good engine from a great one isn't always the flashy stuff. It's the boring, invisible engineering decisions that prove their worth over hundreds of thousands of miles. The Pentastar 3.6 is packed with these smart choices that make us nod in approval every time we pop the hood. Take the variable valve timing system. Instead of the overly complicated multicam setups some manufacturers use, Chrysler went with a simpler cam-in-cam design on the intake side. It gives you the performance benefits of variable timing without the mechanical complexity that can fail. We've seen these systems still working perfectly at 200,000 miles, which tells you the engineers got the balance right between performance and durability. The cooling system design is another masterclass in practical engineering. The thermostat housing is integrated into the water outlet, which eliminates potential leak points. The radiator hoses are routed to avoid hot spots, and there's adequate clearance everywhere for proper airflow. We rarely see overheating issues on these engines unless there's been serious neglect or external damage. Here's a detail that might sound minor but makes a huge difference in the real world. The oil pan design. It's deep enough to maintain proper oil pickup under hard acceleration or steep inclines, but it's also shaped to clear the front subframe without ridiculous ground clearance compromises. The oil capacity is a generous 5.9 quarts, which means more thermal mass and longer intervals between oil changes without stress. The intake manifold is constructed from a composite material that doesn't conduct heat like aluminum, keeping intake air temperatures down for better power and efficiency. It's also shaped to promote even fuel distribution to all 6 cylinders, which is why these engines run so smoothly and produce consistent power across the rev range. Don't let anyone tell you the Pentastar 3.6 is just a grocery getter engine. With 305 horsepower and 268 pound-feet of torque in its latest iterations, this V6 punches well above its weight class, and it does it with a reliability that puts some V8s to shame. But the real magic isn't just in the peak numbers. It's in how this engine delivers power across its entire operating range. The torque curve is beautifully flat. What this means in real-world driving is an engine that feels responsive whether you're merging onto the highway, climbing a mountain pass. We've driven Jeep Wranglers with this engine that feel genuinely quick, and that's saying something given the Wrangler's aerodynamics. I had a customer bring in his Charger with the Pentastar, complaining it felt sluggish, remembers Tony, who's been building performance cars for decades. Turned out he just needed a tune-up, but while it was here, we put it on the dyno. Thing made 285 horsepower at the wheels, bone stock. That's impressive for any naturally aspirated V6. The engine's breathing is excellent thanks to that well-designed intake, manifold, and exhaust port flow. The compression ratio of 10.2:1 is high enough to make good power on regular unleaded, but not so high that you're constantly worried about knock on hot days. The aluminum heads flow well enough that there's actually decent aftermarket potential for those who want to wake these engines up further. But perhaps most importantly, this engine maintains its performance characteristics over time. We've tested high-mileage examples that still pull strong and rev freely, without the power fall-off you often see in engines that weren't built to last. That consistency is what separates the good engines from the legends. One of the most impressive things about the Pentastar 3.6 isn't just how well it works in one application, it's how successfully Chrysler adapted it across their entire lineup. From the off-road focused Jeep Wrangler to the family hauling Grand Caravan, this engine has proven it can handle whatever duty you throw at it. In the Jeep applications, engineers tune the engine for low-end torque and durability under extreme conditions. We've worked on Wranglers that have spent their entire lives crawling over rocks in Utah, and these engines just keep running. The oil pan is reinforced for ground clearance, the cooling system is beefed up for low-speed operation, and the air intake is positioned to avoid dust and water ingestion. Move to the Dodge Charger or Challenger, and suddenly the same basic engine becomes a smooth, refined highway cruiser that can still get up and go when you need it to. The tuning emphasizes mid-range power and efficiency with transmission programming that keeps you in the sweet spot of the power band. Same basic engine, completely different personalities depending on the application. That's the sign of a really well-designed power plant. The Ram applications show off the engine's hauling capabilities. With proper tuning and cooling, these engines can tow 7,400 pounds all day long without breaking a sweat. We've seen work trucks with these engines accumulate serious miles in commercial service, hauling trailers and equipment day after day. This versatility isn't just marketing, it's the result of an engine design that's fundamentally sound and robust enough to handle different demands without compromise. When one engine can successfully power everything from a rock crawler to a family sedan to a work truck, you know the engineers got the fundamentals right. In today's world, an engine can't just be powerful and reliable, it needs to be efficient too. The Pentastar 3.6 manages to thread this needle better than most, delivering genuinely useful fuel economy without sacrificing the performance that makes driving enjoyable. The EPA ratings tell part of the story. Most applications see combined fuel economy in the mid-20s, with highway numbers often touching 30 miles per gallon or better in lighter vehicles like the Challenger. But the real-world numbers are what matter to customers, and this is where the Pentastar really shines. The secret is in the engine's ability to run efficiently across a wide range of operating conditions. The variable valve timing optimizes breathing for both power and economy, depending on what you're asking of the engine. At cruise speeds, the timing shifts to minimize pumping losses and maximize combustion efficiency. When you need power, everything shifts to performance mode almost instantly. I've got customers with Grand Cherokees getting legitimate 28 to 29 miles per gallon on highway trips, reports Lisa. That's impressive for a 4,000-pound SUV with real towing capacity. The fuel injection system uses high-pressure direct injection in later versions, which allows for precise fuel metering and improved atomization. This means cleaner combustion, better power, and improved fuel economy, the trifecta every engineer dreams of achieving. But here's what really impresses us. The engine maintains its efficiency over time. We've tested high-mileage examples that still deliver close to their original EPA ratings, which tells you the engine isn't wearing internally and losing compression. The piston rings are sealing, the valves are seating properly, and the fuel system is staying clean. That long-term efficiency is rare in the automotive world, and it's one of the reasons customers stay loyal to vehicles with this engine. Nothing kills a good engine faster than poor parts availability, but the Pentastar 3.6 has never had that problem. With millions of these engines on the road across multiple brands and model years, the aftermarket support is absolutely phenomenal, and replacement parts are both available and affordable. Walk into any decent parts store, and they'll have maintenance items for these engines in stock. Oil filters, air filters, spark plugs, belts. All the routine stuff is readily available from multiple manufacturers at competitive prices. We never have to special order basic maintenance parts or wait days for a simple repair. But it goes beyond just maintenance items. When these engines do need repair, the parts ecosystem is robust and competitive. Water pumps, alternators, starters, all available from multiple suppliers with next-day availability in most markets. The competition keeps prices reasonable, which our customers definitely appreciate. I had a customer need a timing cover gasket on a Saturday morning, recalls Dave, who runs a shop in rural Montana, called 3 local parts stores, and 2 of them had it in stock. Try doing that with some of the more exotic engines out there. The performance aftermarket has embraced these engines too. Cold air intakes, exhaust systems, headers, and even supercharger kits are available for those who want to wake up their Pentastar. The engine responds well to modifications because the basic architecture is so sound. Even better, the parts interchange between applications is extensive. A water pump for a Grand Cherokee works on a Challenger. Spark plugs are the same across most applications. This commonality means shops don't need to stock dozens of different parts for essentially the same engine, and customers benefit from the economies of scale. The diagnostic support is equally strong, with aftermarket scan tools and software fully supporting these engines. When something does go wrong, we have the tools to figure out what and fix it quickly. After more than a decade of working on these engines, we've collected some stories that really show the character of the Pentastar 3.6. These aren't marketing tales. These are real experiences from real shops dealing with real customers and their vehicles. Tom, who runs a shop in Colorado, tells about a 2014 Grand Cherokee that came in with 287,000 miles. Customer wanted to know if it was worth putting money into or if he should start shopping for something new. We did a compression test, leak down test, the works. Engine tested like it had half the miles. Customers still driving it 2 years later. Then there's the story from Maria in Florida, who had a customer with a Dodge Journey that had been submerged in floodwater. Insurance totaled the car, but the customer bought it back cheap and wanted to see if we could save the engine. We pulled it apart, cleaned everything, replaced what needed replacing. Thing fired right up and has been running perfectly for 40,000 miles since. The abuse stories are impressive too. We've worked on Jeeps that have been rolled, work trucks that have been overheated, and performance cars that have seen way too much time at redline. The common thread is that these engines take punishment and keep running. Had a Challenger come in that the owner swore was making funny noises. laughs Rick, a diagnostic specialist. Turned out the customer had been running it with literally no oil for who knows how long. We added oil, changed the filter, and it ran perfectly. Most engines would have seized up solid. These stories matter because they show what happens when engineering theory meets the real world. The Pentastar 3.6 doesn't just look good on paper. It performs when it counts, under conditions the engineers probably never imagined. That's the mark of a truly great engine. We judge engines not just by how they run when new, but by how they age. The Pentastar has been passing this test with flying colors. We're now seeing examples with well over 200,000 miles, and many of them are still running on original major components. Our customer Frank drives a 2012 Durango that just hit 240,000 miles last month. Original engine, original transmission, just regular maintenance. He hauls his landscaping trailer every day, which isn't exactly easy duty. When we asked him about his experience, he said, "I keep expecting something major to break, but it just keeps going. I change the oil, replace the filters, and it runs like the day I bought it." The key to Pentastar longevity seems to be that Chrysler designed it with realistic expectations. The internal components are robust without being over-engineered. The timing chain is heavy-duty enough to last the life of the engine, but not so complex that it creates failure points. The oil system provides adequate flow and pressure without exotic pumps or complicated routing. We've also noticed that Pentastars respond well to regular maintenance. Customers who follow the service intervals and use quality oil tend to see excellent longevity. The direct injection system stays cleaner than some competitors, and the VVT system remains responsive even at high mileage. From a technician's perspective, we appreciate that high-mileage Pentastars don't develop weird quirks or intermittent problems. When components do wear out, they tend to fail in predictable ways that are easy to diagnose. A failing VVT actuator throws specific codes. A wearing timing chain creates distinctive noises. These engines communicate their problems clearly instead of leaving us guessing. This predictable aging process makes the Pentastar an excellent choice for customers who plan to keep their vehicles long-term. So there you have it. 8 clear reasons why mechanics nationwide respect the Pentastar 3.6. It's reliable, smartly engineered, versatile, and backed by strong aftermarket support. This engine is powerful, efficient, and dependable. Exactly what we look for in modern automotive design. The Pentastar 3.6 has already earned its spot among great American engines, and we believe it'll still be running strong decades from now. If you enjoyed learning why this engine is special, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. More engine legends are on the way.